Okay, that was supposed to fade, but it didn't fade. Come on in, everybody. I struggle streaming already. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk with Maggie and Lucy, where we believe the older women should teach the young, just like the late, great Kevin Samuel said. I'm Maggie, and together with Lucy, we like to come on here once a week with you all and give you some lessons learned and hopefully some relationship advice from our combined 40 years of marriage experience. So, Lucy, say hi to everyone and let us know, what are we reacting to today?
Hi, Maggie. Hi, everyone. Yes. I don't know if you remember, about a month ago, there was an issue with a group of people misbehaving in a Carnival cruise line, and it went all over the place. And I think that this is important to maybe revisit and see where things have gone wrong in society and when we can redirect our energies to end up in a more positive societal environment. Because if we continue on the path that we're on, it's society is in decline. So I sent you, Maggie, that article, and I'm hoping that we can talk about it a little more and see how we can discuss our perspective on what went wrong and what could go right next time.
I love that. And Lucy talked a lot about society, and that's what's important to us. And society is built up of communities, and communities are built up of families. So, our message is for the ladies who are choosing marriage and family in their prime. If you want to live life, on an island and do your own thing and not be accountable to anybody else, that's totally fine. You can do whatever you want to do. You're just not going to be happy over here. We prioritize marriage and family. And again, as older women, it's important that we leave a legacy behind. And you all will see, and you probably have seen this example and something else that has made the news recently about bad behavior in a public place. Hopefully, for those who are interested, you can learn something from this and turn the tide. So, we're not here to shame anyone, even though it might be good to bring some shame back. But I always like to say, what can we learn from this and what can we do better? We love to hear what you all think of it. So you can give us your comments in the chat and we'll bring them up. So I'm going to share my screen. We're actually going to go over an article. I'm excited. We're going to go over an article, and I did put the link to the article in the chat so you all will have it. But this one was on Houston's website because Galveston is a city in Texas. And you can see here the title, More Than 20 People Banned After a Brawl at Carnival Cruise Line in Galveston. And when I look at the title, I love to travel and, I do like to cruise, but it is so unfortunate. I think of how many people, maybe this was a first time experience for them. Maybe they had saved their money to go have a wonderful, memorable experience. Innocently, ended up either witnessing this or unfortunately, being caught up in it. But what strikes me here is you can see that now, for whatever reason this started, the consequence is that 20 people are banned. And the first takeaway for me is this, ladies, you're not going to get away with anything. And sometimes when you have an emotional response, we'll get into what actually happened here. the consequences can be long withstanding. If you don't know this, just like flights have, airlines have no fly lists, cruise lines also have no sail list or whatever they call it. Things that you think you're always going to have access to can be taken from you because of your bad behavior. So we teach ladies to, even though we are emotional creatures, to not have an emotional response. Because if you're that one that loves when things get messy and run towards the action and the danger and want to have a part of it because you think there's going to be a story to tell, it could cost you. And then you're going to have some explaining to do after cooler heads prevail why you can't take that trip, why you can't go on that family reunion, why you can't fly out of the country. And that's not what we want for our ladies. What would you add, Lucy?
And unfortunately, when these situations start happening more often, what happens is that those that observe the situation start generalizing. So even though you're not part of that 20 people that caused a brawl, you're not part of those 15 people that caused that other brawl, you're not part of those 10 people that caused that other brawl, they tend to see which group of people are creating that kind of brawl in situations, and they're going to lump us all in that, and then we all suffer from the behavior of the misbehaved ones.
Agreed. Let's go back in. But some of these old sayings of one bad apple spoils the bunch, or the company that you keep. I know a lot of young people think, oh, that time has passed and everybody needs to hear my story and why I'm different. No, they do not. You are not owed an audience. Nobody has to listen to your explanation or your sad story. Everybody has a story that'll bring a tear to your eye. But again, this is not about thinking that the circles that we run in may not catch up with us. So let's go back in. Forgive me for reading, but let's see what we can learn from this one. All right. So according to NBC News footage, according to NBC News, video footage showed a group of people shoving each other while getting off of a ship inside a Galveston terminal under the authority of the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. The video also showed some people being pushed to the ground as fists are flying. I'm not going to play the video. We shared why last week, but you can just see here, even in this still, this is chaos. And you can see there's luggage, suitcases on the ground. And if you watch the video, which the link is in the description, you can watch it. If you watch the video, you will see the chaos that ensues. So if you're not familiar with cruising or what this cruise terminal is, this is disembarking, meaning the cruise is over. People have celebrated their birthdays, their anniversaries. We are now leaving the cruise ship and coming back into the United States, which is part of border control, because a cruise is basically like a floating resort. So you have to go through security just like you would at the airport. And one of the things we have to understand, ladies, and I teach the boys this, whenever you leave your house now, you should expect that you are being recorded. This is just the world that we live in. And we love the conveniences of modern technology, but the time of you just doing whatever you want to do and thinking that nobody's going to see it or it's not going to catch up with you, that ship has sailed, pun intended. And so if you watch this footage, these are people who should be happy to leave this wonderful experience. And now we're exiting the terminal and we're going back to our regular lives. But we can't just exit with grace. A fight breaks out. And I don't know, because I'm not a violent person. I don't really understand how, if there's a fight, I feel like jumping in that. My spidey senses say get away from danger. But ladies, you got to ask yourself, are you the type of person, when something is going on, even if it's somebody that do you feel like you got to get in there too and let them have a taste of, your medicine? Or can you say, you know what, this is not going to end well. It really doesn't matter who did what, but do I want to be lumped in to this group of people that are pushing and shoving and fists flying? What would you add, Lucy?
Yes, and it makes you question what triggered, what happened in that situation that got to that point. Was it something that was just a mishap, or was it something that was brewing and it continued? And it continued until someone said, you know what, I'm done. And this is the consequence of that. But unfortunately, when you have that situation brewing and you are part of that group, was there not someone saying, hey, you guys, you know what? We need to get ourselves, remove ourselves from this because this is not going to end well? Or, like Maggie said, are you the one that's going to be going in and, be part of making the situation worse?
Absolutely. Let's see what you all are saying in the comments. Gillis is saying, when we're young, we think that others care about our opinions. LOL. It's true. And, we don't get political here, but I don't think it's any accident that over the course of a lifetime, when life happens to all of us and responsibilities change, it's not uncommon for people to start thinking less about somebody owes me something or I'm supposed to get something. You realize that nothing is free. Nothing is just, magic. You are not entitled. The world, what did Kevin say? The world doesn't owe you understanding. And yes, this is true. When you're young, you think that you can explain things away. We hear sometimes women say, I'm young and dumb, or, I didn't know. Let me rip the band aid off and say, as an adult, life happens to all of us. And you may think that you've got a really good reason or a really good explanation, and somebody really needs to listen to why you did what you did. But the facts are the facts. Again, without calling out any names, you all are seeing what's making the news now. And unfortunately, these things continue to happen where people just get caught up in that emotion in the moment and then want to explain it away when a crime has been committed and now the consequences have to be paid. So, don't think that you just got to hear me out and things will change. They may hear you out and you still may suffer the consequence, which for these people, now they can no longer sail on Carnival. The Condemned says, this was insane. Children are always watching. And I love this point here because, again, we talked about society, and society comes from communities, which comes from families. Now, again, if you want to do your own thing and you don't feel responsible to anybody else, go do that over there. But not only are children watching, the world is watching. And ladies, if you want to be in a relationship, your man is watching. Your man is watching to see, how do you conduct yourself when things start to pop off? Are you the type that's like, okay, let me get, old and young people into safety and let's go over here? Or are you the one that's going to put him in a position to try and pry you out of a mess because you just can't wait? You just can't wait to see it. One of the sickening things that I saw about what's recently happening is how some women were almost salivating, or, ooh, I know she gave him, a good one. I can't wait to see the footage. What does that say about you? That's definitely not a wife. That's definitely not nurturing. That's definitely not somebody that's going to bring peace. So if you've got that rah, if you've got that spirit, if you've got that, can't wait to always, go from 0 to 10 that fast, and you find yourself perpetually alone, there could be a reason for that. All right, let's go back in. In a statement from Carnival to the news, a total of 24 people have been banned, and the case has been turned over to law enforcement. The incident occurred in the debarkation area under the authority of U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. The matter was turned over to law enforcement. We will not tolerate such behavior, and 24 people have been placed on our do not sail list. So you can look again at this image. We've got women, we've got men. And here's the thing, again, you can say, but, there's a reason for that. Now you're on the do not sail list. And I saw the comment, from Clue Studio, and people have their opinions about different, ways to vacation. But here's the thing. Now Carnival and other airlines are starting to put rules in place that will affect everybody because of a certain group's bad behavior. Now, I'm all fine for a dress code, but we're seeing this on some airlines that used to be the laughing stock. Now they're not going to allow you on board if you're dressed in a certain way. We've all seen it on the airport. Now, Carnival is putting some things into place, what will be and will not be tolerated on their ships. So, whether it impacts you immediately or the ripple effect takes time, again, we're not getting away with anything. So, if we all want to enjoy these experiences for the greater good, if you believe in that, then I do think it can be a few people choosing to act differently. What would you add, Lucy?
And that also goes back to not having the capacity to look at long term consequences. Because not only are they banned, now they've been turned to law enforcement. If these people have jobs or they're looking for jobs, and now they have already a record that they've been, for whatever reason, they've been put in some kind of list. Do you think that's going to be positive for a future job position or your current job? Now they have face recognition cameras everywhere. So if that camera catches your face as part of that brawl, what do you think your current employer is going to say? Well, you know what? That's a liability. Will that person be able to contain themselves in any kind of issue that they've got here? So now they're going to be looking at you with a different uh, side eyeing you, because they're not sure if you're going to be a future liability because you were not able to contain your emotions, to contain that necessity to prove others that you're right, and you have now been banned from going into other environments.
Such a good point. I see you all in the chat. Let's go back in here. So, what caught me is you can see here where it says that this was under the authority of the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. And, we have people who think, like I said, you're going to explain this away. Once we live in this environment. What is it like, the mandatory reporter? Sometimes it's not up to you. Sometimes it's not up to the story, or this person offended me, or they looked at me a certain way, or they disrespected me. Once evidence has been presented, there are groups that just have to carry it out. You can't argue your way out of things. So, ladies, if you're used to being in situations where you think you're fast on your feet and you're going to tell your side of the story or cue the waterworks or whatever has worked before, you may find yourself in a situation where nobody cares. And maybe you're in the backseat of a police car or you're banned. And I can hear people saying, well, it's not that serious. Who cares? Okay, that's fine. But like Lucy said, now you have a reputation for being a loose cannon. And now people are thinking, okay, so is she going to be a risk if we get into an environment and it's a little bit rowdy? Is she going to add to that? Or is she going to be the one that's looking for things that are peaceful and calm? Because who wants to have to explain that? Now there's a lifetime consequence for something that I think could have been avoided. I wasn't there, but let's see what we can learn from it. All right, so what exactly happened? Border Patrol officials confirmed with the news that about 10 people were detained. Only one person was arrested, Ethan of Chicago. Ethan is 21. Obtained court records claim that Ethan was getting his luggage after debarking Carnival Jubilee and noticed a group of people he had an issue with while on the cruise. He then told officials he had previously met them when they were playing basketball a day before, where they fought. And there were 20 people in the group who approached him in the luggage area. All right, so let's see what we can learn from this. Again, I don't feel like I have a place to talk to men, but ladies, like Lucy said, the company that we keep speaks volumes. And I will also say this, ladies, the men that you choose to be in relationship with also speaks volumes. So according to what he said, after the cruise is over, he noticed some people as they were exiting that he had gotten into it the day before. So ask yourself, if you see somebody that you have had words with or bad blood with in the past, is your gut reaction to go towards them and continue the confrontation? or to just say, you know what, I'm gonna let them do what they do and I'm gonna do my thing. The cruise is over, let's go back to our lives. So, ladies, ask yourselves, but also about the men that you choose to entertain. Are they stable? Are they the type of men that make good decisions? Are they the type of men that are easily offended and then draw you into that mess? Why should you care? Maybe you have a thing for bad boys. Maybe you think, ooh, there's a thrill. I never know what's going to happen from day to day. I have heard women say that. You may think that is young and exciting. Maybe it even turns you on or gives you a thrill. However, that is going to crash and burn. Believe me, one day you are going to want that stability. You are going to want that calmness. You are going to want that repetitive expectation, which will be a comfort to you. But if you have built a dating and relationship history with unstable men, then now you're tired of it because you flew a little close to the sun, and then you meet one that's really one that you're like, yeah, this is the one. He's going to ask you about your dating history, and he's going to ask himself, why has she always chosen the bad boy, the one who's always in trouble, in and out of fights, in and out of jail, or whatever it is? God help you if you had a child with somebody like that. And then that man is going to ask himself, do I want to hitch my wagon to that? What does that say about her decision making? And again, I don't know this man, I don't know the rest of the story, but you can ask yourself if the decisions that you're making are going to help you with the future that you're ultimately going to want. What would you add, Lucy?
I absolutely agree. And they're going to say, well, if this is someone that I think could be marriage material, will she be wanting that kind of drama once we are married, once our children are around? How is that house going to be run with someone that requires that amount of chaos in her life by choosing men that are unable to stay within their square and be able to say, you know what, I'm thinking about my family. I'm thinking about protection for my family. I'd rather go this way rather than confront the issue. But now we're talking about a 21-year-old young man. Unfortunately, he did not have that capacity to say, yeah, you know what, I may as well just go the other way because it looks like his ego was taking over, and you cannot feel safe with a man that takes ego over anything else. So, again, for young women that are wanting to deal with men that have that bad boy, I want to fight everyone, what goes to say that he's not going to be fighting you as well? So, again, is that part of being discerning and making sure that the people you surround yourself, especially the one that you're going to be hopefully in a relationship with, is going to offer you that safety that we all women want, whether we're young or old.
I couldn't agree more. I'm going to come to what you all are saying in the comments. Gilla says, no, I don't like shenanigans. I'll be staying way away. I remember years ago an experience I had with Mr. President. We were at a basketball game and a fight broke out. And it happened so quickly. All of a sudden, I just felt him grab my arm and say, let's go to the car. Come with me. We're out of here. And, like it's almost human nature to kind of crane your neck and want to know what's going on. And I felt him pulling me away from the danger. And I just, went with him, obviously, because, I'm not going to, mess anything up. But I never forgot that. And I never stayed around to see what happened or how it started, or I didn't need to know. His instinct was to protect me. So, ladies, ask yourself, are you in a relationship with a man whose instinct is to protect, or is he rolling up his sleeves and getting in there? Or worse yet, are you the one that's trying to go in there and add to it, and your man is trying to pull you away? Men know that if they enter into a fight, it could be their last. That is why men who are responsible restrain and use it as a last resort. If that is your first reaction, and ladies, if you have attached yourself to someone that is their first reaction, it is just it's not going to end well. It never does. All right, let's see what else you all are saying. Clue is still telling us where to travel. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. And you like that they're supposed to be dressed to fly. There used to be a time when, when you left your house, you presented yourself a certain way. And when we used to travel, you wanted to show up in a way that was respectful, again, because you represented your family, because you represented your community, because you represented society. I think one of the problems with everybody doing for themselves, there's no connection, there's no accountability and responsibility for others. So it's just like, you can't tell me anything. I can wear what I want, I can say what I want, I can behave how I want. And maybe for you that makes sense, but when it spreads out to the general population, this is how we end up where we are, and I don't think it's good at all. All right, let's see what else you all are saying. C. Irving says, as I say, even the most disrespectful have to respect the system one way or another. That's true. You're not getting away with anything, ladies, and especially if you have a reputation for these close calls and just kind of skinning, getting through the skin of your teeth, it's gonna come down on you. It just will. All right, discipled one says, yes, the smart people are looking for the exit. So ask yourself about yourself and the friends that you have. Bria is agreeing. I'm glad that this is helpful. All right. Discipled one says, the men you choose to be in a relationship with speak volumes. You better preach. And ladies, it's true. Even if the relationship that you're in is not your forever relationship, it should be preparing you for that forever relationship. There is no guarantee. Now, if you want marriage and family, I always tell ladies, you should only date the type of men that you see as husband material. Is he wise? Does he make good decisions? Because if you spend your dating years with men that you wouldn't want to have a family with him, or you wouldn't feel safe with that type of man, that is the type of relationship skill that you are developing, always being on edge, always, looking left and right, head on a swivel. And then you meet a man that, is just a great guy, and you feel like there's something wrong there. You feel like he's boring. You feel like he doesn't give you that thrill. That thrill could cost you your life or something worse. All right, let's go back in. All right, so our 21-year-old alleged in his affidavit that the group came up to him and started hitting and stomping him to the ground. But then court documents say he recanted his original statement and just admitted to pushing an elderly man. Investigators then spoke with the elderly man who admitted he saw our 21-year-old share some choice language but couldn't recall what their conversation was. Notice the 21-year-old looked angry and just told him, don't do what you're about to do. Relatives corroborated the statement to officials, adding the elderly victim was trying to de escalate the situation. But instead, our 21-year-old responded by physically striking him. In turn, they fought back against the 21-year-old until law enforcement broke things up. The 21-year-old is facing first-degree felony charges for injury to a child, elderly, or disabled individual and is now held on bond. If that's not disgusting, I don't know what is. But again, what can we learn from this? Lucy and I just taught a course and we were talking about relationship. And I told the ladies, some people, how they behave, it's just their character and who they are. It can't be fixed. It doesn't need to be explained out. Wrong is just wrong. So for whatever reason, this 21-year-old saw an elderly man and, like a bully, decided to take out his frustrations on a man that could not defend himself. So, again, in this case, looks like the 20 something people ran in to defend this elderly man, but now are on the no sale list. It's just unfortunate all the way around, but I stand by what I said. Ladies, we have to look at our actions, and if you want to throw caution to the wind and get in there, that's always an option. But sometimes the best thing to do is to call for help, is to avoid, is to take little ones or other old people out of the way. But, it just makes me very sad that this was a young man, unfortunately, beating up an old man, and now it turns into a brawl at the cruise terminal. It's just like Lucy says, it says a lot about where our society has devolved to. What would you add, Lucy?
And that absolutely, for me, it tells me that this young man has not been taught from the beginning that the elderly, the kids, and even women are not to be messed with. Again, the older man was trying to keep him away from getting into more uh, issues, and instead he responded with a physical, with a physical altercation. I don't blame the ones that came after him after putting his hands on the older man, because that was absolutely not called for. But that goes to say that, where are this young man's parents? Where is his mom? Where are those that will keep him, from doing this nonsense in public? Was the mom in that gathering? Was there not anybody that could keep this young man from behaving in such a, you know, unsocietal way of behaving? So again, that is very scary, that instead of listening to the elder, how we used to do before, he decided to, no, you know what, you're not going to tell me what to do. And in fact, I'm going to punch your lights out to go ahead and do whatever I want to do.
I agree. It's just tragic. And what breaks my heart reading that article is the older man told him, don't do what you're about to do. So he saw it. He saw it starting to come up. And, ladies, we just have to know some people are looking for a fight. Some people are looking for trouble. Some people, that is their normal. But that is not normal. And unfortunately, if you grew up or that's how people resolved conflict and that's all that I hate to say it, but you're doomed to fail. That is never going to fly with the caliber of man that you want. And they're not going to listen to your excuses about I didn't know, or, my rough upbringing or whatever it is. You have to have good decision making. And I agree, unfortunately for him, his behavior started something that could have been completely avoided, and now caused a brawl that all these people got involved in. Let's see what else you all are saying in the chat. Yes, ladies, who you choose to be in a relationship speaks volumes. So if any of this behavior sounds familiar, this is something that you need to stay far away from. People do not change unless they want to, and you're not going to make them change. You cannot love somebody through this, all right? Irving says, bad boy phase. Some of them need to find a healthy hobby. Yeah, find the thrill in a hobby. Absolutely, ladies. There are lots of good, healthy ways to have fun, to express yourself that don't leave you regretting the decisions you made the next day. Bria says, I never chose bad boys, but in my 20s, I chose feminism. Thank God I changed. Yeah, and this point about the feminism, you all hear me ranting about we're not equal, we are equally valued. And sometimes women think, they can get in there and start swinging and kicking and doing all of that. Physically, we are not built for it. Our bodies are not built to take the beating. And this is one of the problems amongst many with feminism, or this whole movement that, we're just people, we're just equal. No, physically, we are not destroyers like that. I mean, if that's what you get into, I don't know, but just I it hurts me to even think about it and read about it. So I'm glad that you changed as well. All right. Disciple one says, yeah, God help you if you have a child with a man like that. Ladies, you wonder why men avoid single mothers. And this is the tragedy. I mean, Lucy and I preach the intact family, but if you come into a relationship with a child and then the child is from a chaotic man like this, ladies, you're pretty much sealing your fate for singleness. I'm gonna tell you, like Mr. President said, obviously most men are going to want their own family. It's just too far of a reach to try and come into something that's already in existence. However, if you are so fortunate that you have a man that is giving you a chance and you have a child, Mr. President said, it needs to be like a well-oiled machine. Whatever routine you have with the father, there needs to be no drama. He needs to be able to stand outside and look and say, oh, this is the agreement that they have in place. This is the schedule that they have in place. It cannot add any stress to him. So, again, we advise that you do not have children outside of marriage because children are just a wild card anyway, and then they're forever attached to the man that came before yours. And no man wants to be reminded of that every day. And Clue is loving what Lucy is saying. Yes, keep both ears open to hear. We want you all to listen and learn if it's helpful. Yeah, and it is true. I'm glad I got out of there. My curiosity can kill the cat. And me wanting to know what was happening and being there a second longer, it could have ended very differently. And all these years later, I never forgot that. And it reminded me that if anything ever happened, without even thinking, his instinct is to get me to safety. That's what you want, ladies, all right? Discipled one says, I'll say it again, the smart men are looking for the exit when trouble comes. This is really important. I see this sometimes with young women who think that a man is supposed to fight to defend his honor, defend your honor. Or I've heard women say, if you really wanted me, you would fight for the relationship. Ladies, men aren't looking for a fight. They fight every day just to survive in jobs that they hate, with people that they don't like, with bosses they don't respect. There's so much fight that they already have within them. Don't bring that out of them. It should be a last resort. Absolutely. C. Irving says they need to hear this. Men know if they get into a conflict, it could be his last. And how would you feel, ladies, if you contributed to something that could have been avoided that ended up being his last? I couldn't. Let's go back in. Oh, that is actually the end of the article. What would you add to it, Lucy? And then we'll go back to the comments.
I would also say that when you were talking about a man not wanting to have any serious relationship with a single mother, it's because they know what comes with that. They know that they're not going to have the capacity to discipline that child because it's always going to be the child first, and then maybe the dad on the other hand. So again, are you going to be able, as a single mother, give that authority for the stepdad to be able to discipline a boy, especially because his 21-year-old seems like he might never had any kind of discipline from a male perspective, because a man will discipline a boy much more differently than women. I have seen it with my sister who has a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. I have seen it with my sister that now has a 28-year-old, but I remember seeing my brother-in-law talking to the boy completely different than when he would talk to his daughter. So again, that goes to show that unfortunately, boys that are raised with single women without that male authority figure, they behave completely different than boys that have had that authority figure throughout their life. those boys are probably not going to be the ones that will go back and continue a fight. They will be the ones that are smart and look out for a different avenue to avoid that kind of confrontation.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you all know my experience. The boys have lived with their dad since they were in high school, and it was very humbling for me, thinking I could be the greatest mom in the world, but I can't raise a man. And I noticed the difference. And I had, girlfriends in my ear saying all kind of mess. Oh, you don't love your kids. And um, I remember the boys got into it with each other. And, a lot of you all who have boys maybe saw it growing up, or you and your brother used to get at it. But once boys get some size on them, they have the strength of a man, even if they're teenagers. There's absolutely nothing I can do. And it was terrifying for me to see. And I called their father, and he came over and did not ask me. And he looked at both of the boys and he said, "Pack your stuff. You're coming with me. You're not doing this to your mother." And we are divorced, you know, a long, long time now. And on paper, I still have custody, if you will. But again, the nature of a man to realize what boys need unapologetically, not asking me, they were gone that fast. And from that point on, he started to instill things in them that I couldn't. Next time they came over, "Mom, you need help with anything?" "Yes, ma'am," and "No, ma'am," and all of that. So I'm so grateful um, for the experience and the life lesson. I mean, now the boys are going into the military, and I know, and I can say without a shadow of a doubt, if I had gotten in the way of that discipline, if I had, tried to say, "You're not going to talk to my child like that, like it's my child, the 50% their father," if I had tried to disrupt what boys need, this 21-year-old in this story could be a story that I would have to tell. And I'm so grateful that it's not. So, what can we learn from this, ladies? And then we're going to go back into the comments. So, again, we've talked about if you are the type, I think it is a very masculine trait to have aggression and to have any type of physical violence. Hopefully, that's not you. I think as a feminine woman, if you want to be a feminine woman, you should want to heal as opposed to hurt. So you have to really ask yourself if that entices you or it repels you. That speaks volumes. If you're in relationship or have been in relationship with men that are loose cannons, or just really unpredictable, you're going to have to immediately remove yourself from that situation and ask yourself, maybe it's therapy. I am not a doctor, but what is it about me that is attracted to that? I have talked to women who say they like the thrill, they like the unpredictability, they like knowing that, anything could happen today. To me, that is not normal. Again, I think women, we like to nest and we like security. I don't know what it is. Maybe you women in the chat that have had an attraction to bad boys, you can explain it. But that doesn't give me a sense of security that makes me feel calm and that I could be my best. So you have to ask yourself, if you've been attracted to that, why? And then if you're going to turn the corner, um, you need to know that this is something that you have to correct on your own. Do not expect any man who has built himself to be patient with you, love you through it, help you work through your issues, give you chance after chance. You're yelling at him, you're pushing at him because that's what's worked in previous relationships. You're going to have one time in a row and he's going to say, "Oh, that's what you're about? Okay, I'm going to let you figure that out." You're going to have to get that right on your own, away from him. The men that we want are never going to tolerate our foolishness. So if you have been quickly dismissed, or you thought, all I did was this, or it's not that big of a deal, like we saw on the other camera footage, where now we're going to cry and plead and try and ask for a second chance, it could be too little, too late. What would you add, Lucy?
I agree. I like Bria's Pretend Bakery's last comment where she says, also, I'm thankful I changed back in my 20s from being that alpha woman. It didn't help while dating, which is, I love that she's saying that because she's very young. And I am seeing that in some of the younger women that I am around, and they're not having any luck finding boyfriends or dating material because of probably what they say, how there's, talking about, that they're independent women, that men are not needed in their lives. And men are watching and they are listening and they're saying, well, if she doesn't think that men are needed, then I'm going to go to another person that appreciates what I can do for her as a man. So, and I think that that's a factor of, unfortunately, in the modern world, what has been presented to women from kindergarten to college. They have been teaching this. It's, unfortunately, it's indoctrination about women can be the same as men, and ultimately you don't need them. And unfortunately, the ones that want that fall into that, they get generalized, and men are saying, yeah, no, I'd rather be on my own. I'd rather go somewhere else to look for that feminine woman that does not feel like she needs to be an alpha in the relationship. It is so unfortunate, but I see it every day, and I hope these young women understand that that's not what men want.
Not at all. I love that. Let's see what y'all are saying in the comments. I'm behind. The Condemned says, oh, yeah, got to throw the book at that young man in this instance. He's got to learn the hard way now. And it's unfortunate. And, I understand, ladies. We talked about this in the class we just taught. Sometimes you have to cut ties and love people from afar. That's one of the things that we teach, ladies. You have to be able to look at how a man conducts himself and say, is that what I want to hitch my wagon to? Is that behavior that is husband material to me? All right. See, Irving is saying, wow. Dr. Steele says this is just like entering someone's house. You have to respect the host's house. It's the same for entering a plane or a ship. This is not your house. Yes. And these are some of the considerations that unfortunately are gone from modern society. People feel like they can walk outside the house in their night clothes, in their nightcap. They can conduct themselves like everything is permissible. When you live in a polite society, we know that is the reason why we have manners and etiquette. There are certain learned behavior that shows respect for each other. And if you say, oh, well, that stuff is antiquated, well, this is how we get to where we are. All right. Let's see right now what else you all are saying. Irving says they think being disrespectful is cool. Yeah, unfortunately, I see this. And again, I don't have a right to speak to men, but anybody who thinks that bad behavior is what's going to set them apart, there's something broken there. It's attention seeking behavior for the wrong reasons. And again, ladies, it is not your job to fix that. It is your job to decide if you want to be a part of that or not. People are who they are. C. Irving says we can learn from Maggie and Lucy's teaching when certain traits become your norm. It takes a long time to reprogram from it, which most are not willing to do the work. This is true and it's very sad. And this is why we harp on women who are choosing marriage and family in their prime. Is it impossible when you get older? No. Is it a lot harder? Absolutely. Because we're all set in our ways. So unfortunately, and I had to realize this, not everybody is going to win. So ladies, again, if you want marriage and family, start making the decisions now that are going to help you when you're our age, right? We don't want you to be in these crazy situations. Absolutely. Dr. Steele says the man is protecting women, and funny enough, following the man's lead is a way to protect the man. I love that. We don't think about that often, ladies, how sometimes our behavior can put our man in harm's way. Why would you do that? Absolutely. Bria says, prior to my marriage, I had the opportunity to become a stepmom, but I see more cons than pros. Thankfully, my husband and I came in without kids. I love that. Thank you, Bria, for sharing that. And you know what? I absolutely love this. We're going to tell the truth. Having a ready made family is not ideal. There's a reason things come in order. There's a reason we believe in boys and girls, men and women, husbands and wives, moms and dads in that order. Is it impossible? No. Is it a lot harder? Yes. And ladies, the men that we want are not going to choose the hard route, even if you think you're amazing. All right. Anything you would add, Lucy?
I love that she had that the opportunity to say, you know what, I'm good, and I will move on uh, and take my chance on maybe finding someone that doesn't have children, because if you think about it, you're already getting two people that are going to get to know each other. It's hard at the beginning, and then you add children in the mix, much harder to deal with uh, to make a functional family out of some dysfunction.
So true. So true. Lucy was telling our students in our class, especially when you're new in relationships, ladies, your job is to study your man and anticipate his needs because you are two different people coming from two different backgrounds. And to give your relationship the best chance of success, you will never get those early years back. That's why it's the honeymoon period. That's when you establish your routines. And it's just a lot harder when you're coming into something that is already established. I'm speaking from experience. Mr. President sat me down on the second date and said, "This is what I want. This is what I will do for you. These are my requirements. This is my timeline. I do not want a blended family. You need to finish what you started, and then we will have our time." And so I could either get on the program or not. And I choose to wait on him because I think he's worth waiting for. And even if I think my kids are great, that's not going to be beneficial to him. All right. So yes, discipled one says, nodding with Lucy. Yes, Lucy's bringing up such great points, right? It is night and day, the difference. And Bria says, I agree, Lucy. I want my kids to have a strong male figure. And my husband is that man. Oh, that just makes him so happy. So happy. Red Bunny Classic says that's a good man. Yeah, my ex-husband, he's a great man. I always tell you all, we can learn from what we've done right and what we've done wrong. And I humbly say, thinking that my accomplishments and my career and, all of those professional accomplishments mattered in the relationship. They don't, that's great for you. But what men want is a supportive wife and a loving family. So I learned a very hard lesson. Second time around, I got on the program. I'm grateful for the upbringing that I had. But just know that this modern world is going to steer us towards productivity and being a consumer and corporate and all of that. There's a place for that, but it shouldn't be the primary place if you want marriage and family. Red Bunny says, unfortunately, if kids are not taught well at home, they may be taught outdoors without love or worse. So true. And yes, Bria, we are so glad that you are not that alpha woman. I'm gonna tell you, ladies, the women that are saying that they're alpha or are pretending like that is how they want to be, they don't. We're not built for it. Don't believe me in your 20s? I'll wait. Don't believe me in your 30s? I'll wait. Wait until you get in your 40s, 50s, 60s. You will be pleading for someone to take that alpha energy away from you. Believe me. Gillis says the bad boy thing is more of a primal and physical attraction. I think that's what it was for me. Zero brain I had back then. Thank you for sharing, Gillis. And this is why, ladies, it's so important not to just go in with I like the way he makes me feel, or like Kevin said, the way he makes me tingle. Yes, you should be attracted, but being a husband is so much more than a physical attraction. You have to be able to know that you can trust implicitly that this man is going to make decisions that are the best for you and him. So if you don't take counsel from older people, you don't have to listen to us. Hopefully you have, mothers, fathers, people in your environment that can coach you and guide you. Okay, this is just, uh, a playboy. That is a husband. And if you don't know the difference, you're going to have to seek that out. There is a huge difference. What would you add, Lucy?
I remember hearing someone, I think he was a neuropsychologist or someone with a PhD, MD, or whatever, who said that women in general, we want men that seem like they can fight for us. Usually, in like all these uh, rom coms, women, for whatever reason, the stories are about either a pirate, a doctor, a vampire, a werewolf. It's men, it's that kind of like beast, Beauty and the Beast type of thing that you want to tame that beast and that man. Quite honestly, I've never wanted to do that because to me, we're not meant to tame any beast. We are meant to live nicely with a man that can provide safety for us, but not always wanting to be aggressive and wanting to be the one that's going to be, attacking people, vampire, werewolf. I don't want that. But apparently, that a lot of the women that are looking for that bad boy image, they're always, for whatever reason, those are the archetypes that we apparently go for. And that goes back to that aggressiveness and that strength that men offer. Usually, sometimes those studies kind of, they have they're based in some kind of reality, but I think that that's probably what they look for in those bad boys, the ability to feel like they can be protected in some way, where they don't realize that a man that is not set in their grounded that way, it's always going to be, for me, a threat. If that man is always wanting to be getting into fights, I'm not feeling safe because I could be the innocent bystander that will get hurt because of that behavior.
Absolutely. I want to say thank you to Irving with the €5. Thank you so much. He said, "This time is not forever, people. Women like Maggie and Lucy understood that sooner rather than later. If you play with your time, you can't replace it." Thank you. Such a good point. Yes, absolutely. That's why we're here pleading with you ladies who want marriage and family. It is not too soon. You are not too young. Lucy and I were both married in our early to mid 20s. Okay. You do not need a whole bunch of experience out here. Let's see what you all are saying and wrap this up. Man, so many comments in the chat. Thank you all so much. The Condemned says, from my experience with those type of women who chase chaos and uncertainty, it's an innate and also conditioned experience, yes, that fulfills their desire of emotional variety. I agree. I think something is broken there if that attracts you. Again, I am not a doctor, but just know that men do have a strength and there is a primal need to defend their family at a last resort, not the first resort. All right, ladies? So please choose wisely. Thank you again, Irving, for that. We appreciate you. Bria says, I'm 32 now and I almost didn't have any luck in my 20s. I blame the men, but it was me. I was the common denominator. Round of applause for Bria. I love the accountability. Yes, absolutely, ladies. You can fix it. You can choose. All right. Life does not just happen to you. Once you're an adult, you get to choose. And Bria says, I went up here. Man, so many comments. Wow. Thank you all so much. Let's see, we might not be able to get through all of them, but let me see what I can get through. Bria says, I was taught to be independent and never let a man control me. We've heard that one before. Yes. And this one is from Disciple. Both of you heard me say it, and I will say it. If you act like a lady, you get treated like one. If you act like a man, you get treated like one. Choose wisely, ladies. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, everybody. I see you all in the comments. Oh, we even had Auntie Jenny here. She says, the more masculine the man is, the more feminine I become. I agree. However, I think femininity can be our default, but I understand what you're saying. All right. Thank you so much, Bria. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for all the comments. If we didn't get to them, we like to keep these to an hour. We will be back next week, Saturday, at our regularly scheduled time to give you all our take. And hopefully this was helpful for the women that are choosing marriage and family. What would you say to close us out, Lucy?
I'm hoping that this format was it was a little different than what we've presented before. Maybe we can share a little bit of maybe the John Griffith and a couple of other content creators, maybe, or we can take another article and decipher it and look at it and give our perspectives on it. So I'm looking at these comments. Thank you so much for the engagement. That helps a lot. It for me, it just builds my the friendship and the relationships that we've had for so long. And I see new faces coming in, and I love that too. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And Lucy, I'm open to whatever. Just as a recap for you all, last week we decided to react to an article because one of the videos that we reacted to, they gave us a little slap on the wrist. I think those content creators that we reacted to in the past that have allowed us to use their content, Ask an Older Man, Psych Hacks, Happy Wife School, John Griffith, some of the ones that we have reacted to. You all can let us know in the comments if you like this article format and more of the conversation, or if you like or prefer the clips that we pause and play and give you our take on, or if you're fine with getting the wisdom anyway. But yeah, Lucy, whatever you want to do, I'm totally fine with it. Okay, Irving likes the format. Okay, fantastic, wonderful. And yes, welcome to everybody who's new. If you're seeing us for the first time, and let me say thank you to Irving for the €5 super chat. So we will see you all next week with something new that we will react to. And until then, we will say adios.